All right. Okay. On this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to talk about how one agency helped an RV rental company grow 146% year over year. We'll talk about the cost of doing it yourself, the big problems people have, the biggest mistakes made in RV website design, the biggest issues in modern digital marketing for RVs and for everyone, and the one place you shouldn't be investing right now for your RV rental company. Luke, Aulin from our town, thanks for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
All right, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And don't forget, this is brought to you by videocasestory.com. We'll talk about Luke's case story in this, but video case stories are the best ways to showcase your business. Learn how to collect, craft, and deliver them at videocasestory.com. All right, let's get started. Before we get into how some of the companies you've helped grow through RV marketing, which I think is super cool, let's just talk a little bit real quick about Our Town.
Yeah, so Our Town's a performance marketing agency that I founded in 2013. So we're in July here, we'll be 9 years old going into our 10th year of business. Founded it on the excitement around marketing becoming a much more measurable discipline, few years into digital becoming such a force for driving businesses forward. I personally got really excited. I mean, I've got 4 parents, 2 of them are chartered accountants. One's an entrepreneur, the other one sold radio for one of the richest men in Canada, Jimmy Pattison. So I think of the agency as a reflection of a bit of my upbringing, like matching dreams with reality, sales and marketing with finance and accounting. Our Town's all about KPIs, being a service to revenue, and helping our customers not only grow, but grow. Oftentimes, it's grow profitably, and it's an exciting time, particularly in this economy, because people seem to care a lot more about profits these days. So that's sort of always been our core strength and our philosophy here. So. Pandemic's been a boom time for a lot of digital agencies, and now the P word, profits, is coming back to the forefront of everyone's minds. So it's a good time to be in this space, and it's a bit about us. So we do full funnel, everything from SEO to the full family of Google ad products, social ads. We build or optimize lead generation websites or e-commerce stores. So very, very proficient in full funnel conversion rate optimization, and we focus on strategy, execution, and visibility. So what to do and not to do, then we get to work doing it. We report on the KPIs and iterate, and it's an ongoing cycle with all of our clients. So yeah,
I like that. I love the ongoing cycle, because I think that's an issue that no one gets it right out of the gate. And you just got to test it, improve it, and test it, improve it, and improve it, and looking at profits too.
Yeah, you got it. The whole thing is, we like to think of it as we're constantly on the pursuit of truth, and because the internet's this piece of silly putty, the truth kind of is elusive. It's always being molded and crafted. Algorithms change, content changes, products change, what the market wants changes. So it's an iterative process. Obviously it also doesn't hurt the business model, because we get into monthly recurring engagements with our clients. So it means we remain sticky because we're in there figuring it out over time with our customers. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, and that's it. You're part of their business because you're bringing them profits, and you become seen as a profit center versus a cost center. But you've had several successes. Is there one that comes to mind when it comes to the RV side of it?
Yeah, got to tell the story. You helped us get out there, Ian. One of the things we loved about the RV space is that it fit very well with our love of tracking the online customer journey right to the conversion point, or the point of sale. Because then you can have attribution right to revenue for your client. And the RV space is interesting because there's software, integrated, that we integrate with their websites that has inventory for their RV fleet. So these are RV rental companies. They have 5 all the way up to 150 plus RVs in their fleet, and we can track the journey of the customer coming from whatever source traffic, organic search to, or paid or whatever the case may be in terms of coming in, right through to the booking through some software with a partner called Outdoorsy and some software, called Wheelbase. And so I guess the story to tell, we're going back, a few years, and it didn't hurt. But I'll share, this story was pre-pandemic actually, but it didn't hurt through the pandemic because the RV rental market did go through a boom. Obviously, with everyone having to social distance from people outside of their nuclear family and travel went to the floor. The one game in town that didn't was RV fleet or RV rentals. But pre-pandemic, this story you helped us tell. We took a website, rebuilt it, mobile responsive. So went from a non-responsive website to a responsive website, integrated Wheelbase, put all the proper tracking assets in so we could report on these metrics. And then we had year-on-year comparison data. The organization's called Ondevan Campervan. The owner's in South Florida. And year-on-year comparison data, this is pre-pandemic, bookings went, it was 146% growth year-on-year, tracking the same time period. So removing sort of anomalistic things like seasonality or whatever, it was all the same data comparing same data. All the fundamental things that everyone hears about is just getting it done but executing it in an effective way and then tracking that. So yeah, we love that story. We still tell it today. We still do a ton of work with RV businesses all throughout the US and Canada. So yeah.
And let's walk through. 146% growth. Now, are you continuing to see that growth? Obviously not that rate because the pandemic is an outlier, but is there a complete pullback, or do you now have consumers for life?
I think it's not unlike the e-commerce trend in the RV fleet trend, is that it boomed through the last couple of years. Digital acceleration, everyone knows this story. You're seeing the growth curve slow, but not a decline. You're seeing some people pull back, but it's still way above where it was. So it's still very much a boom time for it. The key thing, I think a lot of the, if you're in the RV fleet, rental business, I think the important thing about the story, and this is actually Omar, the owner of Ondevan Campervan, who would say this, is his first version of his site was him building it himself. A lot of these are small to medium business owners, and I've been there myself. Those early days, you're so cash strapped. You're trying to do everything yourself. You got to really weigh that against the cost of doing it wrong. And so, in the story, and it's in the video you helped us produce, Ian, is Omar's talking about, he spent 6 months. He had this graphic designer. He did this himself. His wife did something for him. 6 months later, they produced this site. And they did it with their time, and it did so much for them. A few years later, they engaged our town. We built it they built a new site in 2.5 months. Of course, we charged a fee for this, but 2.5 months later, after it was built and launched, we're tracking growth. The site more than paid for itself that they invested in with us in 2.5 months. So the message in that story is there's a high cost of doing things yourself, a high cost of kind of patchwork and piece things together over longer periods of time. You end up with what you pay for often. I think that's an important piece of the story. Fast forward into and through the pandemic, capturing a growth curve, you're capturing even more of that growth when these things are done right. We live in the age of consumers having zero patience for bad experiences online. We've got to shorten the number of clicks. We've got to make the data super clean and clear. We've got to make the data, the information structure look good, and you got to have the data house in order to know where to invest your marketing dollars and why. So you're making smart decisions over time, and all that stuff's just fundamental. So it's the work we love to do. So.
You got the website out, and I think that's an important thing, is the cost of doing it yourself, because I don't think people think of it as a cost. Right? They think of it as I'm saving money, but you're not, are you?
Yeah, no, that's right. You got to look at it as an investment, and then have benchmarks for when that investment needs to return by. obviously we're all managing cash flow. We have to make smart decisions, and there's always competing priorities in our businesses. Um, you know, but you got to look at it as an investment. You got to look at it as something that's going to return to you should you put that money in, and come up with the justification to make the business case. If you're constantly thinking of cost center and saving money, well, often you're doing that at your own expense, which is lost opportunity for capturing customers and your own growth. And the goal I think of for most entrepreneurs when they're starting their business isn't to get stuck in their businesses grinding to a halt all the time. I think the goal for most entrepreneurs is to build something that's cash producing, provides them the freedom and the lifestyle they want to have, and to provide for their families. That's 99% of the dreams. No one's trying to start something that ends up being a job that grinds them to a halt. So you got to really think about these things as investments, not just your cost center. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people, I mean, probably anyone that's listening to the show isn't thinking that way, but I think a lot of people look at marketing as this easy thing to do. And it's like, oh, I see my niece on TikTok. I can hire her to run my TikTok. My nephew built this really cool website. Let's hire my nephew to build the website.
Yeah, totally.
But when you're looking at these things, and like, let's use, just in general in the RV space, where are the big mistakes in building yourself, like specifically that you saw that you fixed, that you see a lot of times in websites and funnels that you fixed in this specific case?
There are many common mistakes. I think it's changed a little bit in the last several years. Increasingly, platforms that sites are built on are mobile responsive or device agnostic responsive websites. Let's just call them that. So not just mobile, but responsive to whatever device people are accessing. This used to be the most common problem, and it still is a major problem. You still find websites out there. I mean, I'm going to age myself on the stat, but we're going back probably 5 years now. So it's certainly improved from this time, but it was something like 65% of small to medium-sized businesses had a website. So there were still 35% of companies out there that didn't even have one. I couldn't believe it when I saw this. And then of those, it was something like 5 or 10% were responsive to mobile devices. And vast majority of the web traffic now is being accessed through smartphones, like 70-80% of the web traffic in a lot of places. So fast forward to now, that's less and less of an issue. The bigger issue we find today is most data infrastructures are broken, and most companies are getting false data reported on what their attribution to conversion point is. Put another way, like how much of your sort of converting traffic is actually attributed to whatever you're doing further up the funnel, Facebook ads or Google ads or maybe SEO or whatever it may be. Most sites don't have the proper tagging done. Most are so tagging just to say like how the site is structured from a data point of view to give clean and clear data on what's happening to the site. And so often we're finding ourselves in projects. Our starting point is often the starting engagement is we review the whole site. We're looking at what's happening with the user traffic, where the drop-off points are, and what's actually being reported from the site so we can attribute what's happening further up the funnel. Like the starting point for marketing today, understanding that marketing is math and you can get the clarity you want to know where to make investments and why. It's possible. It just has to be structured correctly and done right. So, so tagging the site, and then you work up the funnel, and it's either pixel tracking through, Facebook ads and so on, Google Tag Manager. You're making sure all that's set up properly on the Google side, and so you've got source to conversion point clear to make decisions from in the future. And so again, like you got to think of these as your sites and your ad platforms and your channels, these are assets your business owns. It's assets you're investing in over time, and you make these investments over time because these platforms get smarter about what works to drive the right traffic to your site and convert it for you while you sleep. Like that's like, it's sort of like we're still entering the dream phase of digital marketing here. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I see today is the data house is often not where it needs to be to help these companies make decisions.
Nice. And I agree. And it's we're making decisions off of bad data. We had Keith from Segmetrics on, and we talked about that, like how off some of the Google data is, or off the Facebook data that's being reported to you is, and getting the metrics. But now that you've gotten the data in line for some of these RV companies, I don't know if you have a specific result, what are some of the highest leverage points that you see for them that has worked for you to improve their marketing?
The answer depends. So depends on the goals of the organization. If they're looking for speed, immediate results, ads, highest leverage point still. You get your ad structure right. So Google search for sure in the RV space. The consumer here is doing a search. They're either finding them through the Google platform or on one of these, it's like the Airbnb of this category, one of these platforms. Outdoorsy is a partner of Our Towns. That's a platform where RVs get found. So Google search and ads, that's the fastest. So that if the goal is speed, you want to have revenue coming like sooner and than ads. I personally am a bigger fan of SEO because the leverage point down the road is greater and the profit from that traffic is higher. It just takes longer to invest in it. If you put all your eggs into the ads basket, you're constantly beholden to how that algorithm changed, what the cost of that traffic is over time, and you don't control competitive forces and algorithm changes. One thing that consistently shows up as a result long-term that drives profits is SEO. So if you can get your site ranked properly from an organic point of view, A, it's a lot harder for your competitors to unseat you there, and B, once you hold those places, invariably, and this, so I'm sharing like, okay, we're in business 9 years. We've been looking at this data across hundreds and hundreds of clients, pretty much across the board. SEO traffic is the best traffic for your site. It almost always stays on page longer. It bounces less frequently. It converts at a higher rate. You go right to the conversion point of revenue. They close at a higher average order value. So consistently, organic search traffic is the most trusted. That's the most trusted consumer. Whoever's coming to your site from that place they just trust your business at a higher level. So get that piece right. Your long-term profitability and growth is more secure. The downside of it is it takes longer to invest in it. You gotta be there putting money in without much of a clear return. Actually, I should also just add, you're also putting money in without 100% clarity on the return as well, because as you know, Ian, I'm sure SEO traffic, Google just doesn't let us go from the absolute source to the absolute conversion point because they want us buying ads. But if you're working with the right shop, you can get to a very, very reasonable, very short leap of faith, I want to say. It's not that big of a leap of faith to understand what you're doing in SEO is driving to results for you, but it is an imperfect science. But that being said, it's still I can't stress enough, SEO is one of the best to invest in long term for longer term leverage and profitability.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And while it's unknown long term, making that investment every day you don't invest in it, the cost of that investment rises too. Because I remember, I had clients 15 years ago that we had number one for New York City personal injury attorney that were spending like $2,000 a month with us. And now that would cost you $70,000 a month. And and it's just going to go up.
Yeah, no, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, and in that way, you got to be thinking of it as, it's almost like, it's a funny thing where you think about, call it real estate online, where you're found on the search engines. You got to think of SEO almost like you've got two kinds of expenditures, and we'll use the word expense. I know we're trying to stress the investment piece, but call it an investment too. You got CapEx and OpEx. You got capital expenditures. You're investing in things that's an asset that's going to pay off over time. You got OpEx, which your monthly stuff to drive your what you need to do monthly. SEO is often billed by agency as a monthly investment for businesses to make, but you got to really think about it as you're capturing real estate. It's almost like a capital expense that pays off long term. And so it's just like thinking about that in your bucket. Or put it another way, it's owned media. It's not unlike your website. If you do it right and get there, you're owning that space, and it's really hard for competitors to unseat you once you're there. So,
and with Ondevan specifically, since you've been working with them for a while, what types of content, because content is really what obviously grows it, what types of content are you seeing working really, really well right now for them and for the RV space in general?
Yeah, it's put your customer into the immersed experience of what you're trying to provide. It's video content, without a doubt, the best stuff that captures the most attention and converts at the highest rate.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you would. But it's true. I mean, we come down to everything's a human experience, right? And what are we optimizing for? It's for people. Yeah. Put your customer in the experience of what they're buying as best you can when you're marketing your business online, and you're on your way. And just remember, like, most decisions are made from the emotional part of our brain. So whatever you can do around that piece, and video online is still the best space for that.
Nice. And and also, if you want to see this whole case story, we'll put a link to the one we helped develop with our town. Put a link to your case story in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, we'll put down below. So that's great. The video's working well. Awesome. Luke, what's the best place to follow you?
So I'm everywhere. LinkedIn is most active on. So just, my name, Luke Aulin, and I'm there at Twitter at Luke Aulin as well. So those are the two spots I spend most time in. Nice.
And we'll put a link to that in the show notes, and ourtown.ca, as well as a link to their video. If you want to work with them, they do CRO and e-commerce. They work with RV rental companies, and they know their stuff, and they're good people.
Thanks. And one more website just to check out for the RV folks is ourtownrv.com. That'd be the most relevant for the RV fleet owners in the world here. So
awesome. Yes, I did not know about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, I could have had it to you before.
That's all right. We just decided to do this. But Luke, thanks so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show. I really appreciate this. It was a great story.
Yeah, right on, man. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. And thank you all for taking Luke and I on your journey. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.